Just think. Let me see. Think it's okay. Ok, let's go.
Cool.
Olá, pessoal. Obrigado pela presença aí. Estamos aqui com o Marco Panascia, grande baixista italiano, que mora em Nova York. Thanks, Marco, to being there.
Thank you. Muito obrigado.
Eu tenho algumas perguntas para ele, mas quem tiver pergunta também, eu vou conduzir a live toda em inglês, senão eu posso me perder aqui na tradução. Mas eu acho que a melhor forma dele se apresentar é tocando um pouquinho. So, Marco, if you want to play a little bit for us, and then
Yeah.
we can
Of
talk.
course. Yeah. Let me grab a bass.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Now let me move the angle a little bit. Hopefully you can see me. All right. So, yes, I'm gonna play some rhythm changes. Rhythm and Ink by Thelonious Monk. That's it. Are you still there, Lucas?
Yeah, I'm
Cool.
here.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure whether, because the
Okay.
camera had gone black. But let me put the bass by the wall.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's no better introduction than he playing. So great, man. So great.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me. Bom dia.
Thank you. Muito obrigado.
De nada, de
So, so let's begin to
Yeah.
talk. I'd like to ask your beginning on the music and how do you begin playing bass? If it was your first instrument or no, or
Yeah,
not?
of course. Well, I mean, my first instrument was the piano. When I was 8 years old, I started playing classical piano, and I played it for about 5, 6 years. But at the time, I was a young kid, and I was more interested in playing soccer, football, like every young Italian boy, instead of playing music, So I didn't love the piano so much. I was more interested in sports, but at the same time, it was a very useful introduction to music. And the nice thing about playing the piano was that it taught me to read in bass clef. So when I started playing the bass, I was already able to read in bass clef because of the piano. So and it was also useful for music theory, like the fundamentals of music. I learned them through the piano. So now when I play the bass, I always see a piano in front of my eyes, and when I hear harmony, I see a piano playing, that chord. So it gave me a very nice visual approach to music, because the nice thing about the piano is that you can really see everything in front of you. On the bass, it's different because you can play the same note in different spots of the fingerboard, and then you can finger something a different way. But on the piano, you only have one middle C, one middle D, So it's very easy to have a visual way, to see music. So it was really useful. I don't know if you want to, translate maybe.
No, no. I just want to thank you. Beto Rodrigues is translating for
Oh,
us.
okay, okay. Oh, okay, okay, perfect.
Obrigado, Beto, aí pela ajuda, porque eu iria me perder aqui traduzindo.
Obrigado. Perfect. That's great.
So you began on the piano,
On the piano. Yeah.
then when you turned to the bass, you began on the electric or?
Yeah, I began on the electric bass when I was 16. I was listening to Slayer, Iron Maiden, Metallica, also Sepultura from Brazil. So I was into hard rock, heavy metal, like Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin. And at the same time, I was listening to a lot of R&B and pop, Earth, Wind and Fire, Motown. I was not listening to jazz yet, I was more into rock and funk. So I started playing the electric bass. I got a $50 bass from a friend of mine, a classmate when I was in high school. The action was this high, on the electric bass, like it was so hard to play, but it was a good way to get my strength, in the left hand, because it was very, very hard to play. And the first bass line I played was, I think, a Transmission by Joy Division. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but I can show you.
Okay.
Oh, hang on. Yeah, basically. Let me see. Let me turn this thing on. Yeah, the first bass line I played was this one here. And that was it. That was my first bass line ever.
So good.
Humble beginnings.
And how the jazz music turned to your life? How do you
Yeah, well,
begin
jazz, it was because of this guy here,
Yes.
Jaco
Everybody knows.
yeah. Well, Jaco was my connection basically between rock, jazz, and R&B and funk. Because as you know, the great thing about Jaco was that he could play any style of music. Um, he also knew like Bach stuff, classical, So I think it was my bridge, my connection between the stuff that I was listening to and then jazz. It was like kind of putting a bridge, in between, two different lands. And so that's basically how it happened. When I was about 17, I started checking out Jaco's playing and weather report, and I started practicing on the instructional video of Jaco, another famous one that he did, before he died. So that was my connection, and then I started playing the double bass when I was 19, and that happened because John Petitucci came to my hometown in Sicily to do a concert. It was his first tour as a leader. He came to my hometown with a trio with Peter Erskine on drums and Enjoy Calderazzo on piano, and so at the time, John Petitucci was famous for his electric bass playing. Six string with Chick Corea and all the fusion stuff. So we didn't know what he would be playing that night. But he only showed up, with the upright bass. He didn't have any electric bass, and it was an acoustic jazz concert, trio, just with the upright bass. So, during the concert, I was like, I was shocked, because that night it really inspired me, to play the contrabaixo. So that's basically how it got started. So every time I see John Petitucci at concerts or wherever, I always say thank you. You made it happen for me. You gave me the inspiration, to start playing the double bass. So that's basically what happened. Yeah.
Yeah, great. And at the time, did you play like for living or just? I know you. I saw on your Facebook that you studied another thing, not
Yeah. I was
to.
doing at the same time I was doing both a chemistry degree and also I started studying classical bass, with the bow. So I was doing both at the same time, But then I had to make a choice, I found out that music was my true passion, so I decided to quit, chemistry and go into music full time. And then I auditioned for Berklee College of Music in Boston, and they gave me a good scholarship. So that's when I decided to move away from Italy and come to the United States. And that was 21 years ago. So it's been a while.
Yeah.
So I came to the US.
Nice. And
Yeah.
yeah, and on Berkeley, you studied with who? Who was your teacher there?
Yeah, well, I had many different teachers. I had studied with Bruce Gertz, with Dave Santoro, Whit Brown, and a couple of other teachers. Right now it's kind of cloudy, because it's been more than 20 years,
Yeah.
But I had a good experience. Berkeley was really good for me because I liked the fact that I didn't have to limit myself to one style. I was able to play straight ahead jazz on the upright. I was playing with a string orchestra. I was playing pop on electric bass, with like R&B vocalists. So that's what I really liked about Berkeley. That it was not like just one approach. Like it was very, very open-minded, and one thing that I love about music is being able to be versatile. Like being able to not just stick to one style, but just trying to do it all, because you really love like all different styles. And so that's really what I liked a lot about Berkeley, this open-minded kind of approach and being able to just do whatever I wanted, like different styles. Yeah.
Nice. I read that you studied karaoke. That's a legendary bass.
I did.
Let's just to talk em português. Quem não conhece a karaoke é uma baixista que gravou muita coisa na década de 60 e ela tem vários métodos, né, de jazz, improvisação. E o Marco estudou com ela e eu estou perguntando agora para ele como que foi. Just just introduction karaoke
Yeah,
to
of course. She's done about 100,000 studio
yeah,
sessions. Yeah, like
yeah.
one of the most recorded bassists in history. Well, I met her in the year 2000, actually, at the NAMM show in LA, and then for 3 years, I played with an orchestra at a school called the Henry Mancini Institute, which was basically an orchestra that they put together by audition every year. It was like a 90-piece orchestra of young musicians, and we would have guest artists, guest composers, and the nice thing about the bass players is that we could play both in the orchestra, with the bow, in the bass section, and also electric bass. So we had a great double bass teacher, Bert Turetsky, and Carol Kay was teaching electric bass. So that's when I got a chance to interact with her a lot, and we talked a lot about improvisation, and also she taught me how to play with the pick, properly. And we just stayed in touch, often over the years, and I definitely learned a lot from her. I'm very grateful for her teachings. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. I know that she has so many methods and books. And,
Yeah. That's right.
on the class, she will use this material or not? How
Yeah.
the
We were doing stuff, from her books, so she would write down notes, for the picking, to write down up, that kind of thing, when something was a little more complicated. And then, she had a book, with strictly for improvisation, with patterns and things like that. So, we started from her tutorials, from her books, and then, took it from there. So, yeah, definitely, a great learning experience, it was really, really useful in many
yeah.
ways. Yeah.
Great. Friends of mine that was my teacher, Paulo Dantas, is attending here. He asked that you had class with Bertrand Tourist.
Yeah.
I don't know how to.
Bertoreschi,
Yeah,
he's the classical teacher. That
yeah, and he wants to know how was this time with Bertrand and how
yeah,
the classical teaching. You told that you studied classical music and how this helped you on the jazz play and
yeah.
this.
Well, I mean, Bert's approach, was very open-minded. Like we worked on different pieces together. And he just basically tried to help me develop my technique. But we also did just like a lot of talking. Which was very useful. Because he has so much experience. He's been doing this for probably more than 60 years. 60, 70 years. So it was definitely great to talk with him, about not just technique, but also about the music business. So I definitely appreciate the mentorship that I got from him. And in terms of the classical thing, I mean, it's definitely been useful for me because you know I did not base my career on a classical standpoint. More definitely more known as a jazz kind of player. But the nice thing about having spent a lot of time playing with the bow is that it taught me a lot about discipline, about practicing and intonation, a lot of things that are hard to pay attention to if you just limit yourself to pizzicato playing. So I still try to practice with the bow a little bit every day, because it really helps to keep my intonation in good shape. and as studying with the bow really teaches you, the whole instrument, So it's very important, for me to stick to it. And also, I do a lot of work on Broadway shows, and the nice thing about Broadway shows is that for most shows, bass players have to play both the double bass and the electric bass, and it's a lot of different styles, So there are a lot of classical sections, where you have to bow, in a legit, classical way. So it definitely helps, to have, like years of training when it comes to that. But then, you put the double bass aside, and then you have to groove a lot on the electric bass, So it's nice to kind of go from one style to another, and so, I have to say that all my studies, both with the double bass and the electric bass, they help me, for this, to be like as versatile as possible, and being able to play in different styles, in a convincing way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. And we just talk about intonation. For me, your intonation is just incredible on the opera bass. And I'd like to know if you have some specific exercise that you did on the opera that the people who plays fretless and who can do something to improve your intonation, and myself included.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are a lot of different things you can do. I mean, the first thing you have to do is to basically really trust your ears. It's really, really important, to have to really be careful about, paying as much attention as you can, to the intonation. And then, there are a lot of different exercises you can do. I mean, on the upright bass, there's one which is called the vomit. I mean, I can show you. I mean, I'm supposed to bow this, but I'll just play pizzicato, So we're on the G string. And so basically, you want to play an A major scale with all the intervals, and doing all the possible permutations, for the fingerings, and this can apply to like fretless electric bass as well, because it's the same concept, So basically, you have an A on the G string, so you do. So forth. Like, so basically, you do A to B, A to C sharp, A to to D, and you go back and forth, and you have to do it basically with all the fingers. So you do 1-1, then you do the same thing, with 1-2. Then you do 1-3. Then you do 1-4. And so forth. And then you start with the second finger and you do 2-1, then 2-2, 2-3, 2-4. So all the possible permutations, and this is very good for intonation, and also it helps you a lot, with shifting. It basically gets you ready to shift to any note and with any finger, So this is really, really useful for building up your intonation, both on the upright, and you can do the same thing on a fretless bass, electric bass, and so this is really, really useful when it comes to, working on your intonation. I'm going to put the bass back.
Okay, no problem. No, thank you. That's great.
My pleasure.
Another question by Paulo Dantas. I think I will turn this on another question, but how the technique you begin on the electric bass and turn to the upright, but you play both today. How the technique from one helped or not on the another?
Yeah. I mean, of course, the technique on both instruments, they influenced each other. I can make examples, for both instruments. Like when I play electric bass, in the low positions, I still I don't like to play 1, 2, 3, 4, because I find it a little stressful on my hand. So I generally play 1, 3, 4, which is like the Italian way of playing, like the double bass. I know the rest of the world, does 1, 2, 4, but I grew up in Italy where we use the belay method. It's sort of like our C mandel, so we play 1, 3, 4, so I generally start to open up to 1, 2, 3, 4, like I would say around the 5th fret, but in the low positions, I'm just more comfortable, playing, playing with this kind of upright fingering. Like if I had to play, for example, a just an octave on the B flat, on the G string and the A string, this would be a little too stressful for me, so I just prefer, to keep, this fingering, which is more like an upright fingering. And then, I slowly start to open up around here, around the 5th fret. And so this is like an example of like an upright concept influencing my electric playing. And then on the upright, the same thing is true, because I do a lot of open fingerings on the upright bass. So instead of sticking to 1, 2, 4 or 1, 3, 4, I do play 1, 2, 3, 4, towards the the first octave, So I can show you on the upright, so you can actually see.
Okay.
I'm going back and forth between each. So let's see. I'm gonna move this up a little bit. So yeah. So like I'm playing a D on the G string. So I can just open up and play 1, 2, 3, 4. So, which is really cool, because if I want to play a C major scale starting on the E string, I can just stay in one position without shifting. So, sorry, I'm a little out of tune here, but you get the idea. So it's just very convenient, for me to be able to open up here and do like open fingerings, like I would on the electric bass, So it's kind of an example of the two instruments, the technique influencing each other. And also, one thing that I got from the electric bass is that I try to play vertically as much as I can across the strings, instead of, most of the times when we play upright, we play here and then we do everything up on the G string, So kind of just going up and down one string, But I like to actually go this way, like you would on the electric bass, So if I'm playing rhythm changes, I try to get as much stuff as I can out of one position. See, all of this, I did it in one position. I didn't move, not even for 1 second. But you see, there's so much that you can get just like going across the strings, So. Here in this one position, I had 16 notes to choose from, So you can play a lot of stuff. So it's a very good concept instead of just doing everything on the G string. See, like here I'm going up and down, but I can do the same thing, just staying in one position. I didn't move. I just, this is my target area, and I'm sticking with it. So I think this is a concept that I definitely got from the electric. Being able to just go up and down, in one position, and trying to get as much mileage out of it, as many notes as possible. Just staying comfortably in one position. I'll be right back.
Great, man, great.
All right. So yeah, I mean, definitely, the two instruments definitely influence each other in the approaches. And the most important thing is that each one of us comes up, with a personal way to, to do things, musically. And so, one thing I always encourage is to really try to find what works for you. Each one of us has like different ideas about music and fingerings and technique. So just find, what works for you and stick with it. Of course, it's important to learn from the masters, from other great bass players. But at the same time, really like try to focus on what it is that works for you, even if it's considered weird. Like some legit, classical player would tell me, "Oh no, I would never play 1, 2, 3, 4 in the middle of the night." But I'm like, if that works for me, I'm fine with it. So I think it's a good approach. Just really find what works for you and don't be afraid to do it.
Yeah, this is great. Yeah. This is great. And I have a question from Rafael de Souza, he's a very great bass player here in Brazil. He asked, how do you study both the electric and the acoustic bass, and how do you divide your time in studying and to maintain your technique on both instruments?
Well, I just try to do, just try to devote a little bit of time to both of them each day if I can. So with the upright bass, it's mostly like bow technique stuff, because it really helps, with my intonation and also the knowledge of the instrument. And sometimes, I do transcriptions of like solos that I love. But a lot of times, I mean, now things are a little slower because of the pandemic, but before the pandemic, I would get, I would get called to do recording sessions or like tours, so a lot of my time was spent practicing the music that people gave me. And sometimes, there's some challenging stuff that they throw at you, so that took a lot of my time, but in a way it was a good way to work on my technique as well, and for the electric, like I just try to do, basic scales, arpeggios, and also I try to learn, like I want to do a lot of Daddy did the transcriptions, of course. Is definitely like my biggest influence. I've actually learned most of what I know from him. But I transferred it to the upright. But a lot of the stuff that he played on the electric bass. I mean, you and I have talked about this. When you visited New York, and now I think my next project is going to be to learn Inner Urge by Joe Henderson on the electric bass, but I want to do it with a different fingering, because the thing about learning songs, like jazz heads, like that one, is that the upright bass and the electric bass often they require different fingerings, so like Inner Urge, I would probably play it a certain way on the upright, like I would play da 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 da, I would play like really low. But on the electric now, I want to try to play it like up, so that I can be more like vertical. Instead of having to shift, from a low position to the high position, I want to try to do everything more like in staying in one position. So the first note, the F sharp, instead of playing it on the D string, like down low, I will probably play it on the A string, like close to the first octave. And I want to see how it's gonna work out, Yeah. So yeah, I always have like these little ideas, things that I want to work on, and there's always stuff that comes up, Yeah.
Yeah, great. You talked about transcription. This leads to my next question. I think you know I love transcribing. I think
Yeah. You're the
that's
master.
great.
You're the transcription
No,
master.
no, no.
Yeah.
And I always learn, and I want to know to you what's your approach to this kind of thing, and how do you help it on your playing, improvisation, and
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I was younger, I had more time available, so I definitely transcribe more than I do now. Now it's a little more complicated, because life gets in the way, But I'm planning on getting back to it, just like really taking the time to transcribe and write stuff down, instead of just trying to learn it by heart, But the good thing about transcribing is that it helps you. Of course, it's like basically taking a private lesson with someone, because you get a direct insight into their ideas of improvisation. So it's basically kind of a cheaper way to get a private lesson with someone, and you can also get a private lesson, with great bass players that are no longer with us, like Ray Brown. It's definitely there's so much to learn, from their bass lines and their solos, So yeah, it is something that I highly recommend. Of course, it is time consuming. But it's something that really pays off in terms of like learning the vocabulary for improvising. Both for accompaniment, walking bass lines, and for soloing. And so yeah, it is definitely something that I recommend, all my students, to take time with, and if you can, just write the notes down, either with Sibelius or Finale or by hand. I prefer to do everything by hand, I'm still a little old school, Do you generally do everything on the computer directly with Sibelius?
yes.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. I have to join the 21st century. Yeah.
But that's great. And besides the bass technique, and how do you have any difficulty to enter the jazz scene? Like you are not American. How did this worked with you? That
Yeah. No,
you
I think
worked in so many great people, but is there a difficult not being American playing jazz?
no, not really. I think it's all about what you can bring to the table. Like what you can offer as a musician, and luckily that has nothing to do with nationality or the language you speak. So no one should feel discouraged, to because they're not American, it doesn't mean a thing. It's really all about your musicianship, which really has nothing to do with where you're from, And here in America, there's in the United States, there's so many musicians, that weren't born here, but they came here later for school, like me. So it really all has to do, with your musicianship, and also like you have to try to be a good person, because that's almost as important, as your ability to play. You have to be nice to people, and make sure that people want to be around you, just being a good human being, So those are the two most important things, and nationality really has nothing to do with it, So it's it's all about what you can bring, to a musical situation.
Yeah, nice. And I know you played with some greats like Peter Erskine, our idols. And how can I say this? How can I ask you? How good is to play like with these people? You told that what inspired to play the upright bass was a gig with John Patitucci and Peter
Yeah,
Erskine.
Peter was
And
on drums.
then you happened to play with him.
I
How
know, I
good
know.
this was, and
I know, I
how
know. I had to pinch myself, you know, like it was like is this really happening? No, well, I mean, the nice thing about the legends, you know, like really great professional musicians, is that most of them are very, very humble, you know. So it was very easy to interact with them, and that's just really make it really easy, you know, for you to make music with them, you know, because they're uh, one of the great things about legendary musicians is that um, they're very humble. You know, they try to. I can tell that they try to listen to what the other musicians are doing more so than you know, like Peter. You know, like I could tell that he was like paying more attention to me and Dado Moroni, the pianist, than his own self. You know, which means that he was really, really able to interact musically with us on a really high level, you know. So it takes this unselfishness, you know, to really be great, and that's the quality of all great musicians. So with him, I could tell, you know, that it was just very, very comfortable, you know, and I could tell, you know, that he really was trying to focus on the sound of the band, you know, instead of, of of what he was doing himself, you know. So that was a definitely a lesson in being humble, you know, and being there 100% for the music, you know, and not to show how good you are, you know. So that definitely taught me a lot. Yeah,
yeah,
like
great,
putting the
great.
music first, you know, like you know, and then everything else, you know, showing off how good you are, how technically good you are. That's like that comes second, you know. The most important thing is to really think of the doing something that can help a band, you know, sound better. Yeah, and all the legends, you know, do that. You know, that's why they're special musicians. Yeah,
Yeah, this is great, great. And one thing I'd like to ask on the jazz scene on New York and other cities that you played, there is like they want you to play the double bass, or if you show up with the electric, it's okay. How do you
yeah, yeah. Well,
how
I
do
mean, you know, I think it's a worldwide problem. You know, like I think we're living in more conservative times. I mean, musically, like when by that I mean that like in the 70s, for example, I think there was more open-minded, more of an open mind from the musicians. So it was more accepted, you know, to have like an electric bass in a jazz, in a straight ahead jazz setting. Now, um, I think you know most musicians, you know, they just I don't know if it's a visual thing or, but most musicians, you know, they want to have the upright, you know, on the gig, you know. But I try to play electric as much as I can, even in a jazz setting, because I want to be able to show that uh, it's what matters the most is the musician. You know, it's not so much you know the the instrument that you have in your hands, you know, but it's really about the personality of the musician and what he or she puts into the music, you know. So I have like this personal crusade, you know, that I'm fighting, you know, to make the electric bass, you know, more accepted, you know, within a jazz setting, you know. And the people, you know, once people know you, you know, they will trust you. They like if people know me, they know that they can expect, you know, good musicianship, whether I'm playing with the double bass or the electric bass, you know. So I think it has to do more with trusting someone's musicianship and knowing, you know, that whatever instrument they play, it will be at a very high level, you know. So yeah, so most of the times, yeah, I would say in a classic jazz straight ahead setting, people probably still prefer the upright, but you know, um, I try to play my part and do as much as I can, you know, to just have try to have both instruments, you know, with me most of the times, so that I can play my part in getting the electric bass more accepted, you know, within a jazz setting.
Just okay. Came back. We are going to the end of the conversation. Just to continue this, can you play a little electric for us? And you know, like you played up, right? I think you just need to the volume a little lower because it was
it was too loud.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yes. I'll test it and you tell me if it's good. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Let's see. I'm gonna move this a little bit. Yeah, just. Is this good?
Yes, perfect.
Cool.
man.
Incredible.
Sure
you recognize the song, right?
Yes, bye bye,
Blackbird.
Blackbird.
Yeah.
I will need to transcribe your ideas. So good, man. And your time so solid, just amazing. Thank you. One last question here from Danielle.
Of course.
He wants you to talk about your CD with Dario Data, how this
of course.
came.
Yeah, sure. Hang on, just 1 second.
Okay, no problem.
Let me get it. Oh, yeah. Here it is.
Yeah.
This one is still available on Bandcamp, under my name, Marco Panascia. Well, basically, the CD came about because I was doing a lot of live shows, when I would go back to Italy, just duo live shows with Dario. And so one time, we played live at a club, and the owner said, "Can I record you guys?" And we said, "Yeah, sure, yeah, do whatever you want, And so he recorded the show, and then I forgot about it. And a year later, he sent me the files, the WAV files, and so I decided to make a CD out of it. It's basically that simple. And also, around that time, I was touring a lot in Japan, and I didn't have a CD of my own yet. And so I was jealous of all my bandmates, selling like 50 CDs per concert, so I said to myself, well, I want to have my own CD too, so that's basically how it came together, and the nice thing about it is that it's this music is very spontaneous. I mean, we didn't know that we were making a CD, like when you know that you're recording, you generally kind of play in a little more constrained way, like you try to make maybe short solos, that kind of thing, but when we did this, we were just having fun, so the rhythm changes here, I think they're like 15 minutes long, one song. It's because, we were having a good time and just like going with the flow, maybe if we knew that we were making a live recording for a CD, we would have made like shorter solos, but at the time, we didn't know that, so we just had fun. And so what I like the most about this CD is that it's very spontaneous, we just basically we're having fun, and so I like the fact that it has this spontaneity, we just basically had fun and went for it, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Just speak in Portuguese. Quem não conhece esse CD, pessoal, por favor, procure, porque para mim é um dicionário de jazz ali, né? Tem tudo ali. Vocês precisam ouvir isso. I just talking to who didn't know this album.
Yeah.
They need to search it because for me it's a dictionary.
Let me see if I can
played everything.
Let me see if I can put a link in the chat.
Okay,
maybe you can repost it on YouTube. But let's see. Hang on. Let's see. Yeah, so you can repost the link on maybe on the YouTube chat, so that people can check it out. Yeah.
We have time for one more question.
Of course. Yeah.
Paulo Dantas asking about your equipment, the basses, and this beautiful blue bass and the uprights.
Yeah, of course.
You use today?
Yeah, well, I have a lot of basses here, maybe too many, but for the electric bass, the one that you heard me play is a 5-string by Mike Law, a great luthier from Seattle, Washington, who unfortunately passed away a few months ago. But his son is now continuing, with the company, and they're still going to continue making basses, to honor the legacy of Mike. But this is really my, favorite instrument. But I also have a couple of Fenders, I have a 1973 precision bass with flat wounds, and the Fender Roscoe Beck. You remember the 4-string that when we did the lesson, that's what I used, and definitely a few more instruments. For the upright bass, you heard me play a K. That's like an American plywood from 1953, and also have a couple more uprights, but I won't bore you with that, but let's say that this room is full of basses, they're all over the place, Sometimes when I walk, like I have to be careful not to step over basses, because they're all everywhere, on the floor, on the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
great,
I
man.
play Mark bass amps. I've played them for
Yeah.
15 years. I'm really happy about them. I have many different ones, from very small combos to big rigs. But yeah, we're really happy about the sound that I get. For both instruments. Electric and upright. Yeah.
Okay. So Marco, we are 1 hour here, and
Yeah.
I'd like to thank you so much again for taking your time with us. It was great. All the people thank you,
It's my
thanking
pleasure.
you, and
My pleasure.
like I said, you have many fans here in Brazil.
That's great.
You
I'm
like your
really,
work.
really happy about that. I hope to
Yeah.
come back to Brazil soon. Like I really cherish my visits. Like I was in Brasilia, São Paulo, Rio, and Ouro Preto. It was really wonderful. I think I lost 5 kilos in Ouro Preto because of the hills. I was walking every day uphill, and so it was very good for fitness, for exercise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope to come
Great.
back. I really
Yes, please, please.
Cool.
So thank you so much. I know you have some
Thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna
another
have to go to
webinar,
another.
né?
That's right. That's right. But
And
muito obrigado.
muito obrigado.
Muito obrigado,
Thank you so
Brasil.
much, and then take care and be safe.
Yeah, you too, guys. Yeah, please be safe. Wear a mask,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much, man.
Take care,
Have a nice
guys.
day.
You
Thank you.
too. Okay. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye. Bye.
Então é isso, pessoal. Terminando aqui. Obrigado a todos que participaram. Vai ficar salvo. E até a próxima aí.